Hey everyone, just coming back to Project Mitsubashi or HazMit, and I made a community post a while back saying if you wanted the timing belt replacement to be a live stream or a video, and the result said video, so figured I'd I got some time right now, can tear into it and hopefully get the time belt replaced today. So without any further ado, first thing that we got to do is, in order to get this going, we need to first pull off the alternator, and in order to do that we want to make sure that we disconnect the battery. So first things first, I'm going to disconnect the battery, and then I'll start getting the alternator removed along with the drive belt. And then after that, next thing is the engine support bracket needs to come off, so that way it'll give us the room we need in front here in order to access things like the crankshaft pulley and the front cover, the lower part of this front cover. I can get the top part of this off pretty easily, but it will be a lot easier to get everything else once that engine support bracket is pulled off. So these are connector disconnect pliers. I got these from Lyle, and then they also make a straight version of these. They just help you get around wiring connectors, and you can use that part to basically get onto the, in this case, this one had a I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but basically a lever release. So you just put this end onto the lever and then squeeze. This end here will grab the connector and allow you to wiggle it out. Good for if you're somebody like me who has big hands, but also on connectors that might not have been serviced in a long time. They can be really stubborn to get off, so I like using that. This is technically a brake bleeder and also brake fluid capture, but really it's just a vacuum operated fluid section. So basically you just pull a vacuum, and it sucks up any fluid it can pull on. See that? And now I've successfully retrieved the very nasty and definitely needs to be changed power steering fluid, but now I can disconnect the suction and supply lines. I don't have to worry about fluid going all over the engine. And in case you're wondering where I got this, I got it at O'Reilly's. It's just performance tool. I think it's like called brake bleeder or fluid suction type thing like that. I picked it up on the shelf. It really wasn't that expensive. Like I said, it's from Performance Tool. I don't have the box that it came in anymore, so I don't have the part number on hand. If I can find it, I'll put it on the screen. But yeah, super cheap, super effective. I will say though, for whatever reason, some idiot put an O-ring for that little fluid cup that you saw that swells when it comes in contact with petroleum. Not quite sure what they were thinking about that, but considering it's a oil or fluid suction device. But anyway, yeah, performance tool, pick it up at a parts store. super nice to have. All right, so now we have to pull this bracket here off. So in order to do that, because this is supporting the engine, we have to get a jack underneath and put just enough tension that it relieves the tension here on this bushing, and that way we'll know that the engine and the transmission, which is technically over here, and it is supported in part by this, but there are other supports, like there's one back there, there's one up here, and then there's another one over there that primarily take most of the transmission weight, but this one is still helping out in some regard. So let me get the jack underneath the oil pan and I'll start lifting the engine just a little bit. Cool. Look at that. There she is. All right, so I'm here editing the video right now, and this is probably a good time to interject and just come out and say that I did not actually get to film the entire start to finish of this process because it kind of got put on the back burner for a while, or a long while in fact, mostly due to me just getting really busy with school and some other things outside of me being able to work on the car. And I kind of ran into a big problem. So what I see here, or what you see here, is the service information pulled from AllData. And this service information highlights the basic steps that you need in order to get to the actual timing belt, which you can see is labeled number 8 in this picture. Now, my biggest problem that I was running into was the engine mount itself, which is number 7 in the picture. And what I didn't realize is that this picture doesn't fully encapsulate everything you absolutely need to do in order to actually get the timing cover and the engine mount out. On cars equipped with AC and probably some other variations through the years, they actually added some more mounting locations to this engine mount. And in order to get it out, I needed to pull the 2 top bolts for the AC compressor, but I also needed to get all of the belt pulleys out of the way. I needed to, there's a belt pulley in between the AC and the alternator for that drive belt system, and then the power steering actually uses a separate serpentine belt. And you can see on the crank pulley that there is kind of 2 different levels to the pulley. I don't have a good picture of it from the side, but there's a clear step from an outer ring and then the inner ring. The power steering runs off of the inner ring, which would be the smaller diameter of the crankshaft pulley, and the AC and the alternator run off of the larger diameter pulley, or the larger diameter section. So I also kind of was in a rush to get this car done because I needed to, or I wanted to get it entered into a car show that happened at my school right at the end of the semester. So I didn't have a lot of time to properly set up cameras and get like the mic and devote all of that time that I would need in order to complete that. I had a couple of my friends from school help me get it over the finish line so that way we could get it to the car show. But yeah, unfortunately, just due to that circumstance, I wasn't able to actually film all of it. But the car is running right now. It is completely done, and I've been driving it around. So basically, to kind of catch up with what's been going on or where it's at right now, we had to like I said, get those 2 top bolts out. That'll release the engine mount. Then we were able to take the lower timing cover off, and we were able to get access to the tensioner pulley, which kept tension on the timing belt. And then able to get the timing belt off. Obviously the 2 upper camshafts, especially the rear one, had rotated because they were no longer under belt tension. So, and I knew that was going to happen. It happens with every single timing belt job. You're going to have to reestablish timing between the crank and the camshaft, and that's fine. But that did prove to be a little bit harder than I was expecting due to the service information also not being very clear when it came to that exact procedure. I did some research on some forums, and I found out that the best way to do it, if I was going to be doing it in the kind of the environment that I was doing, which is kind of more like a DIY garage rather than a professional shop, would be to take the back or the rear crankshaft, the crankshaft that is closest to the firewall, and actually rotate it 1 tooth forward from the timing mark, and then line up the forward bank perfectly and line up the crankshaft perfectly. And then when you spin the engine around twice, which you want to do by hand to make sure that you're not going to have any interference problems, because this is an interference engine, once you get it spun over twice, you're essentially spinning it back over to where the timing mark should line up. And I didn't realize that until we had spun the engine over probably 4 or 5 times at that point. So then we found the method on the forum, we got it spun over, and sure enough, the timing marks lined up. Then at that point, I needed to finish the engine by myself, so I got the motor mount back in, I got the engine off of a jack stand, then I believe I got the alternator in, and the alternator and the AC electrical hooked back up, called it for a night there. Then the next morning came back in, got the power steering pump reservoir back in and connected, got that refilled. I used ATF because I didn't have any power steering fluid on me, which ATF is fine to use. And then I got the coolant overflow bottle back in, got the coolant filled up, or the cooling system refilled, and I have that in a video that I posted to my YouTube, which was the It's Alive video, and I will play that here too, just with no audio. Then once I got that taken care of and the engine was running and got the air burped out of it as best as I could, got the tires back on it, set it back down on the ground, and I was able to finish up the wiring on the strobe lights in the front bumper, get the front bumper reattached, and then I kind of just did like any provisional checks, make sure, you know, coolant wasn't leaking. Oh yeah, I also forgot to say that because the timing pump, or the timing belt drives the water pump, when I had the timing belt out, also replace the water pump at the same time, so that way I wasn't going back in there doing all of this just to replace a water pump. And yeah, so as of right now, Mitsubishi, or HazMit, is back on the road, and everything has been going good so far.